Leave. Only family is allowed here. My father said that to me at my own sister's wedding after I'd spent 18 hours on a plane to be there. I was standing on a gravel path lined with white pace, carry-on still in my hand, listening to a string quartet play through the doors of a venue I wasn't allowed to enter. My mother stood 2 steps behind him and said nothing. 3 days later, she called about a bill, a $38,000 bill with my name on it for a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. What I said next made her go completely silent. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you all are. My name is Athena. I'm 34. I work in compliance consulting out of London. Now let me take you back to 4 months ago, the day I received a wedding invitation I never should have trusted. Growing up in the Sinclair household, there were 2 versions of childhood happening under one roof. There was Paige's version, the one with homecoming dresses and a used Honda Civic waiting in the driveway on her 16th birthday, paid for by a father who called her my little star without a trace of irony. And there was mine, the version where I filled out my own college applications at the public library because nobody reminded me the deadlines were coming. My father, Gerald, ran a small building supply store on the south side of Charlotte. He talked about it like it was an empire. In reality, it was a cinder block building with a leaking roof and 3 part-time employees who never stayed longer than a season. My mother, Donna, kept the house and kept the peace, which mostly meant agreeing with whatever Gerald said and redirecting any tension toward the path of least resistance. That path was usually me. Paige was 5 years younger, effortlessly charming, and genuinely believed the world arranged itself around her because she deserved it. I don't say that with bitterness. I say it because it's the operating principle that everything else grew from. I left home at 18 with a partial scholarship to UN Charlotte and a savings account I'd built from tutoring fees. Nobody drove me to campus. Nobody helped me move in. I didn't expect them to. 7 years ago, at 27, I took a position with Whitfield and Crane Consulting in London. Compliance analysis, the kind of work where you read contracts line by line, looking for what doesn't belong. I was good at it. I'd been training for it my whole life, without knowing. I bought a 1-bedroom flat in Canary Wharf.
Small, clean mine.
Every square foot paid for with money I earned. I didn't leave home. Home left me first. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday in late September, tucked inside a heavy cream envelope with a foil-pressed return address, Crane and Company stationery. I recognized the weight. Somebody had spent real money on this. Inside, a formal invitation to the wedding of Paige Sinclair and Tyler Redmond to be held at the Whitmore Estate, Charlotte, North Carolina. December 14th, black tie optional, the Whitmore Estate. I looked it up. A restored plantation-style venue with crystal chandeliers, manicured boxwood gardens, and a starting price of $25,000. For a family that couldn't afford to fix the AC in the building supply store, this was a reach. What stopped me was the note Paige had tucked inside, handwritten on a separate card, her loopy script. It wouldn't be complete without you. Please come. P. 7 years. In 7 years, my parents had called me exactly when they needed something. A cosign question. Gerald quickly retracted. An opinion on a medical bill. Donna wanted me to translate. Paige called on birthdays. Sometimes Christmas was a group text. And now this. An invitation and a personal note. A request that sounded almost like it meant something. I booked the flight that weekend. London Heathrow to Charlotte Douglas Economy $1,400 round trip. I told myself I wasn't going because I'd forgiven anything. I told myself I wanted to see if they'd changed. There's a difference between forgiveness and curiosity. I was holding on to the second one with both hands. Rachel Torres, my closest friend from college, now a paralegal at Barnes and Whitfield in Charlotte, texted me when I told her, "You're actually going?" Bold move. I should have listened to her tone. I landed at Charlotte Douglas on a Friday evening in December. The terminal smelled like Cinnabon and jet fuel, and everything felt both familiar and foreign. The draw of the gate agents, the humidity clinging even in winter. I picked up a rental at the Hearst counter and drove to the Hilton Garden Inn near the University District. I never stayed at my parents' house when I visited. That had been true for years. Nobody questioned it anymore. From the hotel room, I called Paige. It rang 5 times. "Hey," she said too brightly. "You made it. Just checked in. Anything I should know about tomorrow? Just be at the venue by 2. Ceremony starts at 3. Her voice had that clipped quality, the kind that means someone's in a room with other people and doesn't want to say much. I got to go. Rehearsal stuff. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. She hung up before I could say anything else. I called my mother next. Donna picked up on the second ring, and the first thing she said landed like a stone in still water. "Oh, you actually came?" I thought, well, the flight was so long. I figured you'd change your mind. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed in my Burberry trench coat, Ramoa's suitcase, still standing upright by the door, and let that sentence settle. She didn't say she was glad. She didn't say she'd see me tomorrow. She said she thought I wouldn't show up. I told her I'd be at the venue by 2 and ended the call. Something was off. I could feel it the way you feel a change in cabin pressure. Nothing visible, just a shift that makes your ears ring.
I didn't sleep well that night.
Saturday, December 14th. I wore a fitted navy dress I'd bought on Regent Street for exactly this occasion. Low heels, pearl studs, nothing showy, just enough to say I belonged somewhere without trying too hard to prove it. The Whitmore estate sat at the end of a long gravel drive lined with bare magnolias strung in white lights. Through the tall front windows, I could see the flicker of chandeliers. A string quartet was warming up. Something by Patchell floating out over the boxwood hedges. My father was standing at the entrance. Not inside greeting guests. Not at the altar waiting for Paige. Standing outside on the gravel, hands in the pockets of a charcoal vest I'd never seen before. Next to a leased Cadillac Escalade that still had the dealer plate on it. He saw me coming and stepped forward. "Athena, you need to leave." I stopped walking. "Excuse me. Only family is allowed. You weren't invited." I held up the invitation. The actual foil. Pressed crane and company invitation with my name on it. "I have the invitation right here, Dad. That was a mistake. You shouldn't have come." I looked past his shoulder. Through the glass doors, I could see Paige in a white Vera Wang gown, laughing with a bridesmaid. Donna stood near the entrance in a lavender mother of the bride dress, watching us through the window. She didn't come outside. She didn't wave. "Dad, don't make a scene. The guests are inside. Walk away." I didn't beg. I didn't cry. Not in front of him. I turned around, pulled my Ramoa back across the gravel, and walked to the rental car. I didn't cry until the doors were locked and the engine was running. And even then, I didn't cry for the wedding. I cried because I'd let myself hope. Back at the Hilton, I sat on the bed in the same navy dress, shoes still on, and stared at the muted television for what might have been an hour. The room smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and the lavender sachet I always pack in my carry-on. A world away from chandeliers and Packle Bell. I called Rachel at 8. "They did what?" Her voice came through sharp enough to cut glass. I told her everything. Gerald at the gate. Donna watching through the window. Paige laughing inside, and Vera Wang while I stood on the gravel holding an invitation nobody honored. "I want to go home," I said. "I'm going to rebook my flight."
Don't. Not yet.
"Rachel, listen to me. Something about this doesn't add up. They sent you an invitation. Paige wrote you a personal note. You flew 18 hours and they turned you away at the door. I heard her set down a coffee mug. People don't do that unless they need something from you, or unless they're hiding something." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say that my family was fully capable of casual cruelty without an ulterior motive. That sometimes people hurt you simply because they can and because you're there. But Rachel had spent 6 years as a paralegal. She'd learned to hear the thing underneath the thing.
Just give it a few days, she said.
"Stay in Charlotte. If nothing happens, fly home Sunday." But something's going to happen. I can feel it. I didn't believe her. I pulled up the British Airways site on my laptop, scrolled through available seats for the next morning. My finger hovered over confirm. I didn't click it. Maybe some part of me could feel it too. 3 days passed. Nobody called. I stayed at the Hilton, working remote from the desk by the window, reviewing audit files for a Zurich-based client who didn't care that my personal life was falling apart. That was the comfort of compliance work. Contracts don't have feelings. They just say what they say. On Monday, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Paige's feed had exploded. The Whitmore estate in golden hour light. Paige and Tyler under an arch of white roses. The cake. 5 tiers. Buttercream probably $2,000 by itself. Hashtags, hashtag Sinclair wedding, hashtag the perfect day, hashtag forever Redmond, 47 photos, not one of me, not one mention, as though I didn't exist, as though I'd never flown 18 hours or stood on that gravel drive, or held an invitation that was supposed to mean something. Then I saw my mother's post. Donna had uploaded a collage. Paige as a baby, Paige at prom, Paige with Gerald at the altar, and at the bottom, a photo of me and Paige as kids, maybe 8 and 3, sitting on the porch in matching sundresses. The caption, "So proud of both my girls." I stared at that word, both, until it stopped making sense. She'd posted both my girls for the audience of cousins and old neighbors who followed her, for the narrative. She couldn't very well explain why one of her girls wasn't in any of the wedding photos. So, she reached a decade into the archive for proof of inclusion that no longer existed. Meanwhile, Paige posted a teaser. Honeymoon countdown. Bali, here we come, with a tagged location at the Four Seasons Resort. I closed the app, shut the laptop, and ate vending machine crackers for dinner. Some performances you can watch, others you can only survive. Tuesday morning, my phone rang at 9:15. Mom, I almost didn't answer, but the compliance analyst in me has a rule. You don't dodge a call when you don't know what the other side is holding. Athena. Donna's voice was stripped of all warmth.
No.
Hello.
No. How are you?
We need to discuss the bill. What bill? The venue. The Whitmore estate. The total is $38,000. A pause, thin as a wire. How will you pay? I sat up straighter. Mom, what are you talking about? I didn't hire a venue. You signed the contract. You're the guarantor. Your name is on the agreement. The room tilted. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't been asked to sign anything. I hadn't even been told there was a contract. I never signed a single document for that wedding. Shuffling on the other end. Then Gerald's voice, hard and close. He'd taken the phone. Don't play dumb, Athena. Your name is on that contract. You're the guarantor. You owe this family. I owe this family for a wedding you kicked me out of. We'll talk about that later. Right now, you need to handle the bill. Dad, I didn't sign anything. Then who did? A ghost? I pressed my palm flat against the desk. My heart was hammering, but my voice stayed level. You keep saying contract and my signature. I'm telling you, I have never signed a guarantor agreement for the Whitmore estate or for anyone. He hung up. I sat in that hotel room and let the words loop. Contract, your signature, guarantor. I knew exactly what those words meant. I read contracts for a living. I knew what a forged signature meant under the law. And I knew what questions to ask next. That was the moment I stopped being hurt and started paying attention. I called the Whitmore estate at 10:30 that same morning. The front desk transferred me to event coordination. A woman named Karen Mitchell picked up. Professional, measured, the kind of voice that manages hundreds of anxious brides and doesn't flinch. Miss Mitchell, my name is Athena Sinclair. I'm calling about the Sinclair Redmond wedding held at your venue on December 14th. I understand there's a guarantor agreement associated with the event. Yes, we do have a guarantor on file for that booking. And Athena Sinclair, that's my name, but I did not sign that document. Silence. The kind that tells you someone just stopped typing. Miss Sinclair, can you repeat that? I'm telling you that I never signed a guarantor agreement for this wedding. I was not asked, and I was not present. I'd like to request a copy of the document. More silence, then carefully. Ma'am, if what you're saying is accurate, this would be a serious matter for our legal department. I understand. I'm requesting a copy through whatever formal channel you require. I can provide government-issued identification to verify that I am who I say I am. She told me the process. Submit a written request, include a copy of my passport for identity verification, and the legal team would email a scanned copy within 48 hours. I thanked her, hung up, and drafted the request letter in 12 minutes. Attached a scan of my passport photo. Steele, you don't know what it's like. You sit in London in your little apartment, and you have no idea what we've been going through. I know exactly what you've been going through, because you just told me. You went through my personal documents, forged my name on a legal agreement, and then locked me out of the event, so I wouldn't find out. She was crying now. I couldn't tell if it was guilt or frustration. I let the silence do the work. By Saturday, the family campaign had reached full volume. Aunt Caroline left a voicemail so polished it could have been dictated by Donna herself. Think about your parents' health, sweetheart. Your mother has been having chest pains. Is $38,000 really worth your father's heart? Uncle Roger sent a second email shorter this time, with the subject line disappointed. One line stood out. We didn't raise you to be this kind of person. We, as though he'd had any hand in raising me at all. Cousin Beth forwarded a group text meant for someone else. An accident presumably that read, "She's being impossible. Mom says she won't budge." The group text she'd meant to forward from was a family chain I'd never been added to. 22 people all discussing me, none of them speaking to me. Then Dylan texted again. Aunt Donna is organizing a family brunch next Sunday at Mom's house. She keeps saying it's to discuss the situation, but from what I'm hearing, I think she's going to pressure you publicly. Heads up. I read it twice. A family brunch, an audience, a stage. Donna was assembling the jury. What she didn't know was that the contract was arriving any hour. And what she couldn't imagine was that I might walk into that brunch with the only thing she was afraid of, the truth on paper. I texted Dylan back. I'll be there. Then I called Rachel. They're setting up a public intervention, I said. Next Sunday. Good, Rachel said. And I could hear her smiling through the phone. Let them. 22 family members, one narrative, and not a single person had asked to see the contract. That was about to change. Saturday night, alone in the hotel room. I almost quit. I had the British Airways site open on my laptop. A seat on the Sunday morning flight to Heathrow, row 34, aisle, for a change fee of $260. My cursor sat on the confirm button like a hand on a doorknob. London was 18 hours away. My flat, my desk, my life. That made sense. Rachel showed up at 9 with 2 coffees from the lobby and didn't knock. She used the spare key card I'd given her on Wednesday.
Close the laptop.
I'm just looking. You're running. She set the coffee on the nightstand and sat at the foot of the bed. And running is what they're counting on. Gerald is banking on the fact that you'll fly back to London, eat the bill quietly, and never make him explain himself. I don't care about making him explain himself. This isn't about explanation. It's about making sure they can never sign your name again on anything ever. That sentence landed differently than anything else she'd said all week. The venue's legal team should be sending the contract copy by Monday at the latest, she said. Just wait one more day. I looked at the screen. Row 34A, the change fee, the departure time. One more day, I said. One more day. I closed the laptop. Rachel stayed for another hour. We didn't talk about the wedding or the contract. She told me about a case at her firm, a landlord dispute, a tenant with receipts, normal things, human things. After she left, I lay in the dark and listened to the ice machine humming down the hall. One more day. That's all she asked for. I almost said no. I didn't sleep. Not really. At 2 a.m, I was lying on top of the hotel comforter, still dressed, staring at a ceiling I'd memorized over 11 nights. I could have drawn the water stain from memory, the shape of it like a country on a map nobody visits. My mind went somewhere. I don't usually let it go. I was 14. I'd won the regional science fair, a project on water filtration using activated charcoal, second place in the state. The school gave me a small trophy and a certificate in a plastic frame. My mother was supposed to come to the ceremony. She didn't. Gerald was supposed to drive me. He was taking Paige to buy new cleats for soccer instead. I rode the city bus home alone. Trophy in a plastic bag on my lap because I didn't have a backpack big enough. When I got home, I put the trophy on the kitchen counter. The next morning, it had been moved to the top of the refrigerator behind a cereal box. Paige's soccer team photo was still front and center on the door. Lying in that hotel room 20 years later, I understood something I'd been avoiding. I didn't fly 18 hours for a wedding. I flew 18 hours to see if they'd finally open the door. And they hadn't. The cruelest part wasn't being turned away. It was realizing I still showed up hoping they wouldn't. At some point, I must have slept because I woke at 7 with my shoes still on and a headache behind my eyes. The coffee Rachel had left was cold on the nightstand. My phone had one notification. An email from the Whitmore estate. Subject line document request Sinclair event. I sat up, opened it, and everything changed. Before I could open the attachment, my phone rang. Gerald, 7:15 on a Sunday morning. Athena. His voice had that practiced steadiness. A man gripping the wheel on a road he knows is icy. I hope you've had time to think clearly. The venue has been very patient, but they won't wait forever. Funny, you should call right now. There's nothing funny about this. I talked to my buddy again, the real estate guy. He confirmed a guarantor contract is enforceable. You signed it. End of story. Did your buddy also tell you what happens if the guarantor's signature was forged, Dad? Because I asked you that last time, and you hung up instead of answering. The pause was longer this time. A full 4 seconds. No one forged anything. You keep saying that word like it means something. It means a felony in North Carolina. That's what it means. Another pause. I could hear him breathing. Shallow, deliberate. You want to play lawyer? Fine. But don't come crying when a judge sees that contract with your name in black and white. I won't be crying, Dad. I'll be handing over my passport with my actual signature on it. And we'll let the handwriting do the talking. You're unbelievable. After everything, I have the contract, by the way. Silence. Total silence. The venue emailed it this morning. I'm looking at the attachment right now. I could hear him swallow. It was the loudest sound on the line. Well, see whose story holds up, I said. He hung up without another word. No bluster this time. Nobody, no ungrateful. Just a click and then the dial tone. I opened the attachment, but I didn't look at the contract yet. I needed coffee first. I needed to be completely steady. While the Keurig brewed, my phone lit up. Dylan, he'd sent a screenshot. A capture from the family group chat, the one I was never added to. I zoomed in and read, Donna, Athena refused to honor her commitment. She's always been selfish. I don't know where we went wrong with her. Gerald, she makes over $200,000 and won't help her own sister. Let that sink in. Paige, I didn't want to say this, but she's always been jealous of me, even when we were kids. And Caroline, maybe we should all go no contact with her. She clearly doesn't value family. Uncle Roger. Heartbreaking. Gerald and Donna deserve better. 22 people, all building a version of me that didn't exist. A selfish, cold, jealous woman who broke a promise and abandoned her sister. A woman who had money and chose cruelty. None of them had seen the contract. None of them had asked to. They didn't need facts. They had a story. And stories are easier to believe when they come from your mother. I screenshot the entire thread, every message, every timestamp. Then I opened a notes file and organized them chronologically. Compliance training. Document everything, especially when the narrative is being written without your consent. Dylan followed up. Sorry, I thought you should see it.
Thank you, I replied.
I mean it, he sent back. Whatever you're planning, I'm on your side. I set the phone down and looked at the laptop screen where the email from the Whitmore estate was still open. The attachment, one PDF, 11 pages. They were busy writing the story of who I was. They just didn't know I could read. I opened the PDF. Page 1, venue details. The Whitmore estate, December 14th, Sinclair Redmond wedding. Event package, Grand Magnolia. Total cost, $38,000. Page 2, payment terms, 50% deposit due upon signing. Remainder due within 30 days post-event. Page 3, guarantor agreement. A separate signature page, clean and official. The guarantor section read, I, Athena Sinclair, hereby guarantee full payment of the remaining balance in the event that the primary contracting parties default. And there at the bottom, a signature, Athena Sinclair, but it wasn't mine. I stared at the handwriting. Whoever signed it had tried to replicate my script, the long tail on the A, the way I looped the S. But the pen pressure was wrong. The slant was too steep. The lowercase letters didn't connect the way mine do. It looked like someone had practiced from a sample, an old tax return maybe, or a bank form, and gotten close enough to fool a venue coordinator who had no reason to question it. Close enough to fool a stranger. Not close enough to fool me. I set the laptop next to my passport, open to the photo page. My real signature sat right there in navy ink. Firm, clean, unmistakable. The two signatures didn't match. That's not my signature, I said out loud in an empty hotel room. And I can prove it. I called Rachel. She picked up on the first ring. I'm looking at it, I said. How bad? My name, someone else's handwriting. It's not even close, Rachel, she exhaled. That's textbook forgery. Under North Carolina law, a forged guarantor agreement is void from the start. It never existed. You have zero liability. I leaned back in the chair.
They didn't just lie about me.
They became me on paper in ink without permission. Rachel came to the hotel within an hour, laptop under her arm, and a legal pad already half covered in notes. We sat at the small desk by the window, 2 coffees, and the PDF filling the screen between us. Here's what we do, she said, uncapping a pen. First, you write a formal letter to the venue's legal department. State that you did not sign the guarantor agreement. State that the signature is not yours. Request that they initiate a verification process, and I attach my passport page with my real signature for comparison. Exactly. We also include a brief statement of facts. You were not present when the document was signed. You were not informed of its existence, and you did not authorize anyone to sign on your behalf. I drafted the letter in 20 minutes. Rachel proofread it twice, tightened 2 sentences, and added a line about preserving the original document for potential forensic analysis. What happens when the venue confirms the forgery? I asked. All $38,000 falls back on the actual contracting party. Your parents' page. And if the venue reports it to law enforcement? Rachel looked at me over her reading glasses. Forgery is a Class H felony in North Carolina up to 25 months. But that's the venue's decision, not yours. All you're doing is telling the truth. I nodded. I don't want to press charges. You don't have to. You just have to tell the truth. I sent the letter with supporting documents at 2:14 p.m. via certified email. Read receipt requested. Then I sat back and looked at the ceiling. Now what? I said. Now we wait for the venue to respond, and we get ready for that brunch. She smiled. I didn't book that flight home either. Tuesday afternoon, Dylan texted again. Brunch is confirmed for Sunday. Aunt Caroline's house noon. Your mom keeps calling it a family discussion. She's told everyone the goal is to help Athena see reason. I read the message in a coffee shop near the hotel. Outside, Charlotte's winter light was thin and gray, and the parking lot smelled like cold asphalt in someone's drive-through breakfast. Help Athena see reason, which meant sit me at a table surrounded by people who'd already decided I was wrong and apply pressure until I wrote a check. I texted Rachel. They're setting the stage. Sunday, Aunt Caroline's house. Rachel, are you going? Yes. You sure? They want a public conversation. They'll get one, just not the version they rehearsed. The plan was straightforward. I'd bring 3 things. The contract copy with a forged signature, the letter I'd sent to the venue, and my passport open to the signature page. No speeches, no accusations, just paper. Let the documents speak. That's what I do for a living. Lay documents on a table and let the room recalculate. Dylan confirmed the guest list. Gerald and Donna, Paige and Tyler, Aunt Caroline and Uncle Roger, Cousin Beth, Cousin Dylan, a handful of others, maybe 15 total, 15 people, 1 forged signature, and a family that had been told a story about me that wasn't true. Donna had organized this brunch to corner me. She'd arranged the seating, controlled the narrative, primed the audience. She thought she was building a trap. She was building my stage. I ordered another coffee, opened my laptop, and reviewed the contract one more time. Every clause, every line, every letter of the name that someone else had written. My name, nobody signs it but me. Thursday morning, the venue's legal department replied. The email was short and professional, the way serious things always are. Dear Ms. Sinclair, we have received your formal claim regarding the guarantor agreement associated with the Sinclair Redmond event. Upon preliminary review, We are initiating a signature verification process. During the course of this investigation, all collection activity directed at you has been suspended. We will notify all parties of the outcome upon completion. I read it 3 times. Then I forwarded it to Rachel. They wouldn't suspend collection unless they saw a discrepancy, Rachel said when she called. This is real. They believe you. 2 hours later, a second email arrived. This one wasn't from legal. It was from Karen Mitchell, the event coordinator, sent from her personal Whitmore Estate address with a subject line that just said, FYI, Miss Sinclair, I shouldn't be telling you this, but I've been thinking about it since your call. I was the one who processed the original guarantor paperwork. The person who dropped off the signed form was an older gentleman. He submitted the document at our front desk and signed it while standing at the counter. I remember, because he seemed rushed. An older gentleman at the front desk signing a form with someone else's name. Gerald. My father walked into that venue, picked up a pen, and wrote my name as though it belonged to him. As though I belonged to him. I saved both emails, printed copies on the Hotel Business Center's printer, added them to the folder. Contract copy, venue investigation letter, Karen's statement, passport signature page for documents, clean, organized, unambiguous. I tucked the folder into my carry-on and zipped it shut. Sunday was 3 days away. The brunch was set. The audience was assembled. All that was left was showing up. Sunday morning, I ironed a white cotton blouse and paired it with a navy blazer, dark trousers, low heels, professional, controlled. The outfit of someone who came to present facts, not feelings. The manila folder sat on the desk. Contract copy, venue letters, passport page. I went through them one last time. Everything in order, everything legible. Rachel called at 10.
How are you? Steady. Good.
Call me the second it's over. I drove to Aunt Caroline's house in the rental. A brick colonial in the Dworth neighborhood with a wide front porch and a minivan in the driveway. 3 other cars were already parked along the curb. Gerald's pickup. The Escalade must have been a rental for the wedding. Uncle Roger's Buick and a silver Honda I assumed was Paige and Tyler's. I sat in the car for a full minute. Engine off, hands on the wheel, 15 people inside. Most of them had already made up their minds about me. Most of them had been fed a version of events that painted me as the villain. The wealthy sister who made a promise and broke it. Who chose money over family. I reached for the folder on the passenger seat. Felt the weight of it. For documents, 11 pages, one truth. Then I got out, locked the car, and walked up the front steps. The door was unlocked. Inside, the smell of kitsch and fresh coffee. Voices from the dining room. Low. Serious. The sound of a family bracing for confrontation. I stepped into the room. 15 faces turned. Gerald saw me first, his jaw tightened. Donna offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Paige looked at the floor. There was no empty chair at the table for me. Cousin Dylan stood up and pulled one from the kitchen. All right, we're about to walk into that brunch. I've got the contract copy, the venue's letter, and my real signature for comparison. My question for you, what do you think I should do first? Option 1, put the contract on the table immediately and let the paper speak. Option 2, let Gerald and Donna tell their version first, then take it apart piece by piece. Or option 3, something I haven't thought of. Tell me in the comments. And if you've watched this far, you already know this story deserves a share. Gerald stood at the head of the table, silver fork resting on the edge of his plate, untouched kitsch in front of him, the posture of a man who believes he owns every room he enters. I want to thank everyone for coming, he said as though this were a board meeting and not an ambush. We're here because of a difficult situation. Athena made a commitment to help with Paige's wedding. She signed a contract with the venue, and now she's refusing to honor it. Aunt Caroline nodded. Uncle Roger crossed his arms. The room had already chosen a side before I sat down. Donna spoke next, dabbing her eyes with a cloth napkin. We didn't want this to become public. We've always handled things privately, but Athena has left us no choice. The performance was polished. Gerald played the aggrieved patriarch. Donna played the heartbroken mother. They'd rehearsed this, or at least they'd lived inside the lie long enough that it felt like truth. Then Paige. She was sitting next to Tyler at the far end of the table, eyes red, voice small. I just wanted my sister at my wedding. I wrote her a personal note. I invited her, and now she's turned everything into a fight about money. Tyler sat beside her, silent, his brow creased. He hadn't said a word. Gerald looked at me from the head of the table with the steady gaze of a man who's certain the room belongs to him. Athena, we're giving you a chance to do the right thing in front of your family. I sat at the far end of the table, folder on my lap. I hadn't spoken a word. I let them finish every sentence, every rehearsed line, every tear. Let them build the rope. They'd need it. The chorus started on cue. Uncle Roger went first. Athena, we've always thought of you as the responsible one, the successful one.
Just do the right thing.
Aunt Caroline, your parents could lose their home over this. Is that really what you want? Cousin Beth, barely looking up from her phone. You earn good money. Honestly, it's kind of embarrassing that this is even a conversation. Each voice landed like a stone tossed onto a pile. They weren't asking questions. They were delivering verdicts. Through it all, I watched Tyler. He was leaning back in his chair, looking from Gerald to Donna to Paige with an expression I recognized. The expression of someone hearing a story for the first time and realizing it doesn't match the one they were told. He leaned toward Paige and whispered just loud enough for me to catch. What contract? Paige put a hand on his arm.
Sure.
I'll explain later. Tyler didn't look away from her.
His jaw shifted.
Gerald, emboldened by the room's compliance, turned to me with something approaching triumph. See, even your family agrees. You made a commitment. We have the contract. You signed it. Aunt Caroline, just say yes, Athena. Just say you'll cover it, and we can all move forward. 15 faces, 14 of them waiting for me to break. One, Dylan, at the corner of the table, watching me with quiet attention as though he could see the folder on my lap. Gerald spread his hands. She can't even defend herself. She knows she signed it. I looked at him, held his gaze for 3 full seconds. Then I stood up. The chair scraped the hardwood. The room went quiet.
I've been listening, I said.
Now it's my turn. I opened the manila folder and placed the first document in the center of the table. The guarantor agreement printed on Whitmore Estate letterhead. This is the contract everyone's been talking about. The guarantor agreement for Paige's wedding at the Whitmore Estate. My name is on it. I pointed to the signature line, but that is not my signature. Then I placed my passport beside it, open to the photo page. My actual signature. Firm, slanted, slightly left. The looped S and the long-tailed that I've written the same way since I was 17. This is my real signature. Look at them side by side. Aunt Caroline reached for the contract first. She held it next to the passport, squinting. Uncle Roger leaned in. Cousin Beth set down her phone for the first time all morning. The signatures weren't close. Not when you looked. Not when you bothered to look. The Whitmore Estate has confirmed they are investigating the forgery, I said. I placed the venue's letter on the table. The suspension of collection. The formal investigation. During the investigation, all collection activity against me has been suspended. Gerald's face had gone the color of wet cement. That's ridiculous, he said. You signed it over the phone or electronically. Dad, I kept my voice level. The venue's event coordinator confirmed that an older gentleman submitted this form in person and signed it at the front desk. The room processed that sentence in real time. I watched it land on Aunt Caroline's face, on Uncle Roger's, on Tyler's. Gerald's mouth opened. Nothing came out. For the first time in my life, I watched my father have nothing to say. Aunt Caroline spoke first. She set the contract down on the table as though it had burned her fingers. Gerald, is this true? You signed your name. It was for Paige. His voice cracked on the second word. We had no other option. Our credit was destroyed after the store went under. The venue required a guarantor. We didn't. You committed forgery. Uncle Roger stood up from his chair, his face flushed from the collar up. On your own daughter's name. Gerald, do you understand that's a felony? Donna reached for Gerald's arm. We were desperate.
You don't know what it's been like.
Desperate? Aunt Caroline's voice was a blade. Donna, I asked you last month to your face if Athena had agreed to help. You looked me in the eye and said, yes. Donna said nothing. At the far end of the table, Tyler pushed his chair back and turned to Paige.
Wait.
You told me your parents were covering the venue. You told me Athena was just helping with flowers. Paige reached for his hand. Tyler, sit down. You knew? His voice wasn't loud. It was worse than loud. It was the voice of someone recalibrating everything he thought he knew about the person sitting next to him. You knew your dad forged your sister's name on a contract, and you said nothing. It was complicated. It's a crime, Paige. It's not complicated. It's a crime. The room had split. Gerald and Donna on one side, pinned, exposed. Paige beside them, trying to hold Tyler's hand while he pulled away. And me, standing at the end of the table with an open folder, saying nothing more. I didn't need to. The documents were doing exactly what documents do. The room was fracturing. Voices overlapping. Donna crying. Uncle Roger demanding answers. Tyler staring at Paige like he'd never seen her before. I raised one hand. I'm not done. Silence. Immediate. I'm not pressing charges. That's not why I'm here. I looked at each person at the table one by one. But I want everyone in this room to understand 3 things. I held up one finger. I never signed that contract. I have 0 legal or moral obligation to pay a single dollar of the $38,000. Second finger, I flew 18 hours to be at Paige's wedding. I stood outside that venue with an invitation in my hand, and I was turned away at the door by the same person who forged my name because he was afraid I'd find out. Third finger, I don't hate anyone in this room, but I will not carry debts that were never mine, and I will not apologize for refusing. Donna's voice came through the tears.
Athena, please, Mom.
I lowered my hand. I'm done being the person you call only when you need something signed or paid or blamed. Gerald still hadn't spoken. He was staring at the contract on the table like it was a mirror. I gathered the documents slowly, deliberately, and returned them to the folder.
Kindness is not a contract, I said.
And being family is not a blank check. I tucked the folder under my arm, walked past the table, past the kitchen and the coffee and the silence. Cousin Dylan met my eyes as I passed. He gave a small nod. I walked out the front door, down the porch steps, and into the thin December light. Nobody followed me, but this time the silence didn't feel like rejection. It felt like respect. I was halfway to the rental car when I heard them through the open dining room window. Tyler's voice, tight, controlled, but carrying. You lied to me about the money. You lied about your sister. What else did you lie about, Paige? Tyler, I didn't lie. We handled it differently than your father committed a felony, and you knew it wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like, because from where I'm standing, I married into a family that forges documents and throws people out of weddings to cover it up. I didn't linger. I got in the car, set the folder on the passenger seat, and started the engine. In the rear view mirror, I saw Cousin Dylan walk out the front door and down the porch steps. He came to the driver's side window. That took guts, he said quietly. You're the one who sent me the screenshots. You did plenty. He shoved his hands in his jacket pockets. Uncle Gerald hasn't looked up from the table. Aunt Donna is locked in the bathroom. Paige is trying to keep Tyler from leaving. Is he leaving? I don't know, but he said he needs space. I heard Paige say something about canceling the honeymoon. I let that settle.
4 seasons Bali.
The trip they'd teased on Instagram 3 weeks ago.
Gone.
Athena. For what it's worth, most of the room is on your side now. Aunt Caroline told Uncle Gerald he should be ashamed.
And that's Aunt Caroline.
Thanks, Dylan. He stepped back. Drive safe. I pulled away from Aunt Caroline's brick colonial and didn't look in the rearview mirror again. The highway was empty and the sky was wide and gray, and I drove with the radio off because some silences are earned. Monday morning, I was in the hotel lobby checking out at the front desk when the email arrived from the Whitmore Estate Legal Department. Subject: Guarantor Agreement Determination. Dear Miss Sinclair, following our investigation, including handwriting comparison and witness statements from venue staff, we have determined that the guarantor signature on the event guarantee agreement dated August 12th does not match the verified signature of Athena Sinclair. Accordingly, the guarantor agreement is hereby voided in its entirety. All financial liability for the outstanding balance of $38,000 reverts to the primary contracting parties. Gerald Sinclair and Donna Sinclair. A revised invoice will be issued to the primary parties under separate cover. I read it standing at the counter, suitcase handle in one hand, phone in the other, voided in its entirety. The desk clerk asked if I needed anything else. I said no. I walked to the car and sat in the driver's seat and read the email one more time. Then I called Rachel.
It's done, I said.
Tell me. Voided all of it. Liability reverted to Gerald and Donna. She let out a breath. You owe nothing. I owe nothing. A second email had come in while I was on the
phone.
The venue's revised invoice sent to Gerald and Donna. I was CC'd. Please remit payment of $38,000 within 60 days. Failure to comply will result in legal action. 60 days. $38,000 for a wedding they threw to prove they were something they weren't, signed with a name that wasn't theirs to use. I set the phone in the cup holder and drove to the airport. The flight home was 18 hours. I slept for 14 of them, the deepest I'd slept in weeks. Paige called 3 days later. I was back in London, standing in my kitchen in Canary Wharf, watching the Thames go silver in the late afternoon light. Her voice was different, smaller. The bravado was gone. No, just write the check. No, you can afford it. Tyler can lead Bali, she said. He says he can't trust me until I'm honest about everything. That sounds like a conversation you should have with your husband, Paige. He wants me to use the honeymoon deposit to help pay the venue. $8,000. Are you going to? Silence. Then I think I have to. I poured hot water over a tea bag and let the pause sit. Athena, I need help. Could you? Would you talk to Tyler? Tell him I'm not a bad person. Tell him I just know, please. That's your marriage, Paige. Those are your words to find. I can't be your bridge. Not when you're the one who burned ours. She was crying now. Not the performative tears from the brunch. Real tears. The kind that come when you've run out of angles, and the only thing left is the shape of what you did. I was wrong, she said. I know I was wrong. Knowing isn't the same as fixing. Then how do I fix it? You start with the truth, with Tyler, with yourself. You stop treating other people's names like resources you're entitled to. The call ended a minute later. No resolution, no group hug, just two sisters separated by an ocean and a forgery. And the distance that honesty creates before it heals. I drank my tea by the window and watched a barge move slowly down the river.
Some things take time.
I was learning to let them. Gerald called on a Thursday late afternoon his time, evening mine. I was reviewing a client report at my desk when his name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but the man who called wasn't the man I expected. The venue is threatening to sue. His voice had no edge, no authority. It sounded like a voice that had been folded and put away. I'm going to have to sell the truck and some of the equipment from the store.
You put yourself in this position, Dad. I know.
2 words. No deflection. Nobody with legal advice. No ungrateful. Just I know. I didn't think. He trailed off. Started again. I thought you'd just pay. I thought that's what you do. I thought because you had the money, you thought I'd cover it and never ask questions. Yes, because that's what I've always done. Handled things quietly, flown back to London. Not made a scene.
Yes.
I looked out the window at the lights along the wharf. A crane was working on a new building across the river, its red light blinking in the dark. There's something else, he said. The venue was just the big one. I also signed your name on the rental agreement for the tables and chairs. Another $4,500. $42,500 total in my name, without a word. Dad, I'm not going to lecture you. The venue has voided the contract. I'm out. Whatever happens next, the payments, the truck, the legal consequences, those are yours. I'm sorry, Athena. I hear you. I mean it. I know you do. But sorry doesn't erase a forged signature. And it doesn't erase being told I'm not family at my own sister's wedding.
He was quiet for a long time.
I know, he said again, and hung up. I'd already been back in London for a week by then, but the story kept settling like sediment in a glass slowly, layer by layer, until you could see through to the bottom. The morning after Gerald's call, I went for a walk along the Thames before work. The river was the color of pewter, and the air was cold enough to sting. I passed the same joggers, the same man walking his terrier near West Ferry Circus. My phone buzzed. Aunt Caroline Athena, I owe you an apology. A real one. I should have asked for your side before I took anyone's word.
I'm sorry.
Then, Uncle Roger, a text this time, not an email. I said things I shouldn't have. I was wrong. Cousin Dylan, you're the strongest person I know. Seriously. I read each message on a bench near the river. 3 apologies from people who'd been ready to cut me off a week ago. But nothing from Gerald, nothing from Donna, nothing from Paige, the 3 people who actually owed me the words. I put my phone away and watched a tourist boat cut through the gray water. Winning didn't feel the way I expected. I'd imagined something clean, a sense of closure, a door clicking shut. Instead, it felt like cleaning out a wound. Necessary, unavoidable, but it still stings. Rachel called that evening.
How are you?
Honestly. Relieved, sad, tired. All 3 at once. All 3 at once.
That sounds about right.
She told me about a new case at her firm. A contractor dispute. Nothing dramatic. Normal things, human things. The same kind of grounding she'd given me in the hotel room that night when I almost booked the flight home. Some people hold you up by being extraordinary. Rachel held me up by being steady. 3 months later, life looked different for everyone. Gerald sold the Cadillac Escalade. It turned out to be a 36-month lease he'd taken out specifically for the wedding, another performance, and liquidated what was left of the building supply inventory. Between the truck, the equipment, and a small loan from Uncle Roger, he managed to pay $22,000 toward the venue debt. The remaining balance, roughly $20,000 including the table rental, was being negotiated into a monthly payment plan, $500 a month. Gerald and Donna's retirement timeline pushed back by at least 4 years. Donna got a job. For the first time in 30 years, she was working part-time cashier at a grocery store on Sardis Road. I heard this from Dylan, not from her. Paige and Tyler were still together, but the honeymoon was gone. Paige had surrendered the $8,000 Bali deposit toward the venue debt. They were in couples counseling. Tyler's condition for staying. He told Paige that financial transparency wasn't optional anymore. Every account, every statement, every dollar accounted for. The venue chose not to pursue criminal charges. In most civil matters like this, they don't. A payment plan is cheaper than a prosecution. Gerald would not have a felony record. He'd have a debt, a damaged reputation, and the knowledge that he'd been exposed in front of every person whose respect he'd spent a lifetime performing for. Then in March, a letter arrived at my flat. No return address on the envelope, but I recognized the handwriting, Donna's careful, slanted print. It was short, 1 page. I have no right to ask for anything, but I want you to know that I'm learning what it means to earn a relationship instead of demanding one. I set the letter on my kitchen table next to my tea. I didn't write back, not because I was angry, because I wasn't ready, and for the first time, I let that be enough. London. Carried on. The temps changed color with the seasons, petered a slate to something close to green when spring arrived. I went to work. I read contracts. I caught discrepancies that saved clients money they'd never know about. And I went home to my flat in Canary Wharf and made tea and looked out the window. But something had shifted. I started saying yes to things I used to decline. A colleague's dinner invitation. A weekend trip to Edinburgh with Rachel. She came to visit in April. A phone call from Cousin Dylan that lasted an hour and covered nothing important and everything that mattered. For years, I'd confused self-reliance with isolation. I'd built a life that was clean and ordered and entirely mine. And somewhere along the way, mine had started to mean alone. The trip to Charlotte didn't fix that, but it cracked the wall enough to let light in. In May, I called Paige. It was a short call. No mention of the contract, the venue, or the $38,000, no apologies, no accusations. Just 2 sisters talking for the first time in a way that didn't have an agenda underneath it. How's work?
She asked. Busy. Good. Busy.
How's Tyler?
We're working on it.
Counseling helps.
Good.
Athena.
Yeah.
I'm glad you called. That was all. No grand reconciliation. No tearful forgiveness montage. Just a door left open. Not because anyone earned it yet, but because keeping it shut was costing me more than I realized. Strength isn't about carrying everyone's weight. It's about knowing which burdens are yours and putting down the ones that aren't. I'd put mine down, and my hands were finally free. It's evening in London now. The sky over Canary Wharf is that particular shade of blue it gets in late spring. Deep at the edges, pale gold where the city lights meet the river. I'm sitting at the window in my flat with a cup of Earl Grey that's gone lukewarm, which is how I prefer it if I'm being honest. I think about that day sometimes, the gravel path, the white pace, the string quartet playing through the doors of a venue I wasn't allowed to enter.
Leave.
Only family is allowed. My father said that to me in front of a door he'd already closed. And, in a way, he was right. Only family was allowed. The problem was he'd forgotten who his family actually was. He forgot that family isn't a performance you stage for an audience. It isn't a contract you sign with someone else's hand. It isn't a bill you slide across a table and expect someone to pay because they happen to share your blood. Family is the people who show up, not because they owe you, but because they choose to. It's Rachel, who brought cold coffee to a hotel room and told me to close the laptop. It's Dylan, who sent a screenshot that changed everything. It's the version of Paige who called in May and said, "I'm glad you called," and meant it. I look at my passport on the shelf. The signature inside is mine. Clean, certain, unforged. My name is Athena Sinclair. I'm 34 years old. I work in compliance. I live alone in a flat by the river. And I'm still learning, that saying no to what hurts you is the same thing as saying yes to who you are. Nobody signs my name but me. And that's enough. That's finally enough. That's my story. And if you're still here, thank you. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear. Option 1. Have you ever had to set a boundary with your own family, even when it cost you something? Option 2. Have you ever been the family ATM? The one everyone calls when they need something, but never when they don't. Or option 3. Tell me something completely different. Your story, your words, drop it in the comments. And if you want more stories like this one, check the description. I've linked a few that hit just as hard. Until next time, remember your name, your signature belongs to you. Don't let anyone write it for you.